Nature on Earth sometimes does not look like a part of the familiar world, but like lands from another planet. From gigantic cliffs and primeval forests to harsh and mysterious wildernesses, each place carries a fierce beauty far beyond imagination. Many places look so unreal that it is hard to believe they exist, as if they should not belong to this planet at all. There, every landscape is at once majestic and untamed, making human beings feel small before the raw power of nature. Today, we will explore the wildest places on Earth, where nature appears in its most untamed, extreme, and unimaginable forms. At Yosemite National Park in California, United States, the landscape opens like a massive stone stage where an ancient glacier-carved valley lies between towering granite walls. More than 100 million years ago, magma slowly cooled deep underground and formed hard granite that later rose to the surface through long erosion. What made people describe Yosemite National Park as a gigantic natural stone fortress in the wilderness? The answer lies in ancient glaciers, once up to 4,000 feet thick, that crushed rock, widened the valley, and left granite walls rising more than 3,000 feet. Waterfalls falling from cliffs nearly 2,500 feet high create huge white columns of water that echo across the wide stone valley. Even today, almost the entire park remains a largely untouched wilderness, where long trails lead deep into forests of giant trees and massive rock landscapes. This powerful sense of wild nature helped Yosemite become a symbol of the conservation movement in the United States and influenced the creation of the modern national park system. Yellowstone National Park is one of the most unusual and extraordinary natural regions on Earth, and it also stretches across the states of Montana and Idaho in the United States. Yellowstone became the first national park in the world when it was established in the year 1872, later turning into a global symbol of nature conservation. Yellowstone covers nearly 3,500 square miles, an area almost the size of a small state, large enough to contain deep forests, wide grasslands, and rocky valleys reaching the distant horizon. Millions of years ago, massive glaciers, as thick as tall skyscrapers, slowly moved across this land, crushing rock and carving the broad valleys that shape the landscape today. Beneath the ground lies a huge magma system that creates thousands of hot springs, colorful mineral pools, and columns of steam rising from the earth. Across the open plains, herds of bison weighing nearly 2,000 pounds move slowly through tall grass, while rangers and visitors appear small inside this vast wilderness. Lake Hillier in Western Australia appears like a strange pink lake in a wild coastal landscape of Australia, where the quiet scenery often makes first-time visitors pause for a moment to understand what they are actually seeing. The lake is about 2,000 feet long and nearly 800 feet wide, a deep pink strip of water standing out between a bright white salt edge and a remote landscape with almost no sign of human presence. This unusual color led scientists to search for an explanation for why the water looks pink, like paint, in the middle of nature, and studies showed that salt-loving algae and bacteria produce red pigments that fill the salty water. Lake Hillier formed when seawater became trapped inside an ancient coastal basin, and over thousands of years, evaporation slowly left behind dense salt water and a unique community of microscopic life. In the year 1802, explorer Matthew Flinders saw the lake from a high viewpoint and recorded the strange pink water during his journey along the wild southern coast of Australia. Today, Lake Hillier still remains largely separated from large settlements, a quiet pink lake where science, unusual landscapes, and untouched nature exist together in a remote corner of Australia. In the Sahara Desert of Mauritania, the Rishat structure appears like a giant eye pressed into the earth, surrounded only by endless rock and sand stretching to the horizon. The geological formation is about 25 miles wide, where massive concentric rings of exposed rock rise from a desert landscape that feels almost completely empty and isolated. Why is the Risha structure often called the Eye of the Sahara? Because from space, the huge circular rock rings look like an open eye in a vast sea of desert, and astronauts easily recognize this natural landmark while flying over the Sahara. The rock layers here are about 100 million years old and were once lifted into a giant dome before erosion slowly revealed the circular structure over immense spans of time. When people walk across the wide stone rings, they mostly see round valleys covered with rock and sand, where signs of life almost disappear from view. The extreme isolation of the Rishat structure means that for long periods, the place is left only with silent desert landscapes and the rare tracks of research expeditions. What created Antelope Canyon in the United States? A sandstone canyon where massive rock walls were carved into deep winding corridors inside the earth. The surprising answer is repeated: floods carrying sand that slowly eroded the stone over millions of years. Inside the canyon, curved rock passages connect like a natural maze where layers of sandstone were gradually shaped by moving sand and powerful water flows. Some sections are only about 3 feet wide, close to the width of a door, yet the stone walls rise nearly 100 feet high. Indigenous families living around the area have long known these narrow rock passages, and many still guide visitors while sharing stories about the desert landscape. The canyon walls appear smooth and curved like frozen waves, showing how sand carried by floodwater slowly polished the sandstone across vast periods of time. As you walk between the narrow stone corridors and towering walls, you may feel as if you are moving through a natural stone labyrinth, carved slowly by time itself. What makes Mount Roraima, located between Venezuela, Brazil, and Guyana, become a giant tabletop mountain rising apart from the surrounding rainforest landscape? The answer lies in hundreds of millions of years of erosion that separated an ancient plateau into this flat-topped massif. Around the mountain stand nearly vertical cliffs rising about 1,500 to 3,000 feet high, roughly comparable to 2 or 3 Eiffel Towers stacked together. Across the summit, which covers about 12 square miles, the terrain appears as an ancient stone plateau, filled with dark rock surfaces, deep cracks, and scattered shallow pools of water. The rock of this mountain formed from ancient sand layers about 2 billion years ago, which later hardened into sandstone during long geological compression. Over immense geological time, erosion gradually separated this block from the original plateau, leaving behind the remarkable tabletop structure that still survives today. As you move across the ancient rock surface and past small pools resting between deep stone fractures, the experience feels like entering a landscape isolated from the familiar world. Great Australian Bight in Australia is a vast ocean gulf, where the edge of the continent breaks into tall limestone cliffs facing the open sea. The coastline stretches about 750 miles, nearly the distance from Paris to Rome, showing an unusually long and continuous landform. Some cliff sections run for about 120 miles and rise 200 to 400 feet, forming a nearly unbroken wall of stone. Offshore, the seafloor drops quickly to depths of about 20,000 feet, creating a layered and complex body of ocean. Nutrient-rich upwelling systems lift food toward shallower waters, allowing large marine life to survive in what seems like empty space. This region is also a breeding ground for southern right whales, which return on slow reproductive cycles, making these waters vital for a threatened species. Napali Coast in Hawaii, United States stretches about 17 miles, where volcanic sea cliffs have been deeply eroded into sharp, folded formations. Cliffs rising nearly 4,000 feet reveal uplifted basalt layers carved slowly over immense time, exposing clear geological structure. The shoreline remains uneven and almost without broad, flat ground, allowing the natural landscape to stay largely isolated and undisturbed. Narrow valleys cut deep into the slopes, formed from millions of years of rainfall and flowing water, shaping distinct terrain. The name Na Pali means the cliffs in Hawaiian, reflecting the landform and native communities once farmed narrow strips between mountain and ocean. In 1993, the coast appeared in the film Jurassic Park because its terrain remained nearly untouched, representing an ancient world. Waitomo glowworm caves in New Zealand is a limestone cave system formed about 30 million years ago, where underground water carved deep chambers and dark river passages. Rainwater rich in carbonic acid dissolved the limestone for tens of millions of years, creating layered cavities and hollow ceilings shaped by internal erosion. Each year, more than 500,000 people enter this space in near total silence because loud noise can reduce the glowing population. The Maori, the indigenous Polynesian people of New Zealand, discovered and passed down management rights through generations, treating the cave as ancestral heritage and long-term livelihood. What causes the cave ceiling to shine blue in complete darkness without any artificial light source? It is thousands of Arachnocampa luminosa larvae producing bioluminescent light to attract insects inside this closed ecosystem. As you drift slowly through thick darkness, with countless living lights suspended overhead, it feels like entering an ecosystem completely separated from the surface world. Danakil Depression in Ethiopia lies about 400 feet below sea level, a vast basin where the earth crust is being pulled apart and fractured. This region, covers more than 4,000 square miles, roughly the size of a small European country, showing the scale of a landscape constantly breaking. Three tectonic plates meet here, thinning the rock layer and allowing magma to rise closer to the surface across the entire area. Thick salt layers formed after ancient seawater evaporated, leaving white crystal plates cracked into polygons across the hardened ground. Salt mining has continued for centuries, and square salt blocks once served as currency, linking human survival to this dry mineral surface. Standing on the fractured salt crust and bright mineral fields, you can sense the Earth's surface slowly shifting beneath your feet. What makes K2, located between Pakistan and China, widely known as one of the most dangerous mountains on Earth, rising about 28,000 feet, with extremely steep, ice-covered slopes? K2 formed when massive tectonic plates collided over tens of millions of years, pushing ancient seabed rock layers upward and creating a towering mountain structure. The mountain has a sharp pyramid shape where four steep faces meet near the summit, giving the peak a very distinctive and dramatic structure. Many sections of the mountain exceed 50 degrees in steepness, forcing climbers to rely on fixed ropes during much of the ascent. Giant walls of rock and ice rise thousands of feet along the slopes, making climbing conditions far more demanding than on many other high mountains. A striking historical fact shows that for many decades, roughly one climber died for every 4 who successfully reached the summit. What makes the Himalayas, located between Nepal, China, and India, become one of the most powerful mountain landscapes on Earth, where enormous rock walls rise across Asia? Geological studies show the range formed about 50 million years ago when the Indian plate collided with the Eurasian continent and pushed ancient rock layers upward. Standing within the high terrain reveals wide glacier valleys and towering cliffs that create the feeling of entering a completely different geological world. Scientists describe this region as one of the largest ice reserves in Asia because more than 15,000 glaciers accumulate across its mountains and deep valleys. Many glaciers stretch for dozens of miles, slowly moving through rugged rock terrain, while carving deep valleys across the mountain structure. Scientific discoveries have also found marine fossils inside rock layers high in the Himalayas, proving this land once existed beneath an ancient ocean. Mount Everest rises along the Himalayan range between Nepal and China and reaches about 29,000 feet above sea level, making it the highest point on Earth. Air pressure near the summit drops to about 1/3 of sea level, so the human body receives far less oxygen at such extreme altitude. Rock layers close to the summit contain marine fossils showing this land once existed under an ancient ocean hundreds of millions of years ago. The Himalaya formed about 50 million years ago, when the Indian tectonic plate collided with the Eurasian plate, and the mountains still rise about 0.2 inches each year. Massive glaciers cover the slopes with ice thickness reaching several hundred feet, and the ice slowly moves downhill only a few feet each year. In 2019, scientists installed an automatic weather station near the summit around 29,000 feet, creating one of the highest research stations ever placed on Earth. In northern United States, within Alaska, stands Denali, a massive mountain that makes first-time visitors wonder how one solitary peak can dominate such a vast horizon. From the open ground nearby, you can see enormous glaciers sliding slowly down the slopes, shaping broad frozen valleys that stretch for many miles. Denali rises about 20,300 feet above sea level, making it the highest mountain in North America and a major objective for climbers. The rock mass of Denali began forming around 60 million years ago, when tectonic plates collided and gradually lifted this large mountain block upward. Seen from a distance, the glacier-covered mountain appears like a giant wall of rock rising above the surrounding wilderness and drawing attention to its summit. Scientific measurements also show that Denali is still rising about 1 millimeter each year as slow tectonic movement continues lifting the mountain. Welcome to the Kamchatka Peninsula in the Russian Far East, where volcanoes, glaciers, and vast wilderness exist together across one massive peninsula. Crossing the open tundra plains, travelers can see rows of cone-shaped volcanoes rising along the horizon, like enormous geological landmarks. Hot springs and altered ground appear because magma located several miles beneath the crust constantly releases heat through fractures in the earth. Geological studies show this peninsula contains more than 300 volcanoes, and about 29 of them remain active today. Some volcanic peaks rise above 15,000 feet, which allows glaciers to exist directly on the slopes of still active volcanoes. Many wide valleys across the peninsula formed when ancient volcanic craters collapsed after powerful eruptions during earlier geological periods. Lake Baikal lies in southern Siberia of Russia and has long been considered one of the most remarkable freshwater lakes on Earth because of its extreme depth and ancient geological history. Geological research shows that the lake formed about 25 million years ago, which makes Baikal the oldest existing freshwater lake still present on Earth today. In 2019, a scientific submersible expedition reached depths close to 5,300 feet in the lake, providing new data about geological structures beneath the lake floor. Lake Baikal reaches a maximum depth of about 5,300 feet, making it the deepest lake ever recorded on the planet. The lake holds about 20% of the unfrozen freshwater on Earth, which makes it the largest natural freshwater reserve by volume. During winter, methane gas bubbles rising from the lake floor become trapped in the clear ice, forming visible columns of stacked bubbles beneath the frozen surface. Why is the Namib Desert in Namibia considered one of the most unusual deserts on Earth, where massive sand dunes have existed for about 55 to 80 million years and still continue to change shape under the influence of wind? This desert stretches along the Atlantic Ocean, forming a vast sand belt that reaches toward the horizon, where the surface is rarely interrupted by tall vegetation. Many dunes here rise close to 900 feet, creating enormous sand formations that resemble the slopes of small mountains shaped entirely by moving wind. The dunes often appear as long parallel ridges extending for miles, while desert winds slowly shift their shapes year after year. In several parts of the desert, the yearly rainfall is only about 1 inch, which prevents the formation of stable rivers or lakes across most of the land. Some insects in the Namib Desert are able to collect tiny droplets of water from ocean fog on their bodies, which allows them to survive in an environment with almost no rain. In North Africa lies the Sahara Desert, the largest hot desert on Earth, covering about 3,500,000 square miles and forming one of the widest dry landscapes ever recorded. Only about 20% of the Sahara surface consists of sand, while most areas are ancient rocky plateaus and gravel plains shaped through several geological stages. Many sand dunes rise higher than 500 feet and constantly shift as desert winds move massive amounts of sand across the landscape over long periods. Satellite observations show that the Sahara releases about 180 million tons of mineral dust every year, which travels across the Atlantic Ocean and supports distant ecosystems. Radar studies have also revealed ancient river systems stretching hundreds of miles beneath thick desert sand, showing that water once flowed across this region. Beneath the dry surface, geologists have identified rock layers older than 3 billion years, which helps scientists understand very early stages of Earth geological history. In northern Chile, the Atacama Desert spreads across a vast, empty landscape where the ground appears almost lifeless and raises curiosity about how such an extreme desert formed on Earth. Walking across salt crust and volcanic rock surfaces, you can travel for dozens of miles, while encountering almost no tall vegetation or flowing water across the wide terrain. A surprising detail is that in many areas, the ground is so hard that vehicles can move for dozens of miles across mineral crust without leaving deep tracks. Climate studies show that some parts of the desert receive only about 0.04 inches of rain each year, which allows salt and minerals to accumulate for millions of years. Large dry plateaus rise more than 13,000 feet above sea level, creating thin, dry air and exceptionally clear skies for observing distant space. Laboratory studies of certain soil samples once detected no microbial DNA, which shows that this desert contains ground where life is extremely difficult to survive. The Gobi Desert, located between Mongolia and northern China, is a vast desert that has long attracted scientists and explorers seeking to study its unusual landscape. Entering this region, the ground does not appear as endless sand, but as wide plains of gravel and rock that resemble a dry ocean of stone. Researchers consider the Gobi a natural archive of ancient Earth because extremely dry conditions preserved dinosaur fossils within sediment layers for tens of millions of years. In several parts of the desert, sand dunes can rise more than 900 feet, which is close to the height of an 80-story building. Standing in the open desert, a person may see more than 30 miles across the horizon because the terrain remains flat and lacks large vegetation. In 1923, scientists discovered fossilized dinosaur eggs in the Gobi, providing strong evidence that dinosaurs reproduced by laying eggs. The Amazon rainforest stretches across northern Brazil and covers about 2,100,000 square miles, making it the largest tropical forest ecosystem on Earth. In 2000, UNESCO officially recognized parts of the Amazon as a World Heritage Site, confirming the global ecological importance of this vast rainforest system. Scientists estimate the forest contains about 390 billion trees belonging to more than 16,000 species, creating one of the highest plant densities ever recorded. From above, the forest canopy extends for thousands of miles, while large rivers curve across the region like an enormous network, transporting water through the forest. Ecological studies show that a single hectare of forest can contain more than 300 different tree species, producing a rare, multi-layered vegetation structure. The dense canopy blocks most sunlight, allowing only about 2% of solar light to reach the ground below the forest. In Central Africa, the Congo rainforest, within the Democratic Republic of the Congo, spreads like a vast ocean of trees, where entering the forest reveals a continuous canopy covering the sky. Traveling along rivers through the forest, dense vegetation blocks most sunlight, while flooded forest zones stretch for miles across the landscape. This rainforest ecosystem stores about 30 billion tons of carbon within vegetation and deep peat soils, making it one of the major natural carbon reservoirs on Earth. Some ancient trees rise higher than 160 feet, forming multiple canopy layers that support a stable habitat for thousands of species. Satellite research shows the forest releases large amounts of water vapor into the atmosphere, helping sustain rainfall across much of Central Africa. Scientific studies also revealed peat layers deeper than 18 feet, formed over thousands of years, turning this rainforest into a huge natural carbon storage system. Patagonia, located at the southern end of South America between Chile and Argentina, covers about 400,000 square miles and contains vast steppe, landscapes, mountains, and glaciers formed during ancient ice ages. Geological studies show many valleys in Patagonia were carved by glaciers more than 20,000 years ago, creating wide basins that stretch for miles. Standing on the open plains, visitors can see rocky mountains and large glaciers appearing together across a horizon that extends for many miles. Many lakes in the region appear bright blue because extremely fine glacial rock powder remains suspended in the water. Some glaciers in Patagonia extend beyond 30 miles and slowly reshape the surrounding valleys as the ice mass moves forward. A notable feature is that Patagonia contains one of the largest glacier systems outside the polar regions, covering more than 6,500 square miles. In southern Russia, Mount Elbrus rises as the highest peak in Europe and also a massive dormant volcano that attracts scientific interest because of its unusual geological structure. The mountain stands about 18,500 feet above sea level and has two major summits with a height difference of roughly 70 feet. Moving across the wide slopes, you can observe large glaciers flowing down from the summit area and spreading across the ancient volcanic mountain surface. More than 20 major glaciers begin near the summit region and descend along the slopes with several ice flows extending beyond 5 miles in length. The rock layers forming Elbrus consist mainly of lava and volcanic ash, showing that the mountain developed through repeated eruptions hundreds of thousands of years ago. Scientists have drilled ice cores deeper than 500 feet here to study climate records preserved inside the layered glacier ice. Serengeti stretches across Tanzania and Kenya and is a vast savanna ecosystem that attracts global scientific attention because of its scale and natural wildlife movement. The ecosystem covers about 12,000 square miles and forms one of the largest remaining natural grassland systems on the African continent. Each year, more than 2 million hoofed animals migrate across the plains in search of fresh grass and reliable water sources. When observing the plains, you can see enormous herds stretching for several miles as they move continuously across the open grassland landscape. The grasses of Serengeti grow on soil formed from ancient volcanic ash, which provides rich nutrients for large populations of grazing animals. Another notable fact is that Serengeti supports more than 500 bird species, which makes the ecosystem an important location for biodiversity research. What makes Ngorongoro Crater in Tanzania often described as a vast valley formed inside an ancient volcano where thousands of animals live within the same natural landscape? From the rim of the crater, the entire valley spreads below like a giant bowl filled with grasslands, water areas, and herds of wildlife moving across open ground. Scientists estimate that nearly 25,000 large animals live inside the crater, creating one of the most concentrated wildlife ecosystems on the African continent. How did such a massive volcano transform into this wide valley after the original mountain collapsed following powerful eruptions millions of years ago? The floor of the crater covers about 100 square miles, an area large enough to support many animal populations across open grasslands. Tall crater walls completely surround the valley, forming a natural enclosure that keeps much of the wildlife ecosystem contained within the same landscape. At the southernmost part of Earth, Antarctica spreads across the planet as a massive frozen continent, isolated from all other landmasses and covered almost entirely by ancient ice. This continent covers about 5,500,000 square miles, and nearly 98% of its surface remains buried beneath thick ice. When standing on the ice surface, you are actually standing on frozen layers that can reach more than 2 miles in thickness above the rock below. Many icebergs that break away from the continental edge can extend beyond 50 miles in length, making them the largest floating ice masses on Earth. Each year, only about 100,000 visitors are allowed to reach Antarctica by expedition vessels turning the journey into something closer to scientific exploration than tourism. Beneath the thick ice sheet lie hundreds of ancient lakes that have remained sealed away for millions of years without direct contact with the outside environment. The Greenland ice sheet spreads across the island of Greenland in the North Atlantic and represents a massive continental ice body formed during multiple ice ages. Scientists study the Greenland ice sheet extensively because deep ice cores preserve trapped air and dust layers that record about 120,000 years of Earth climate history. When traveling across the surface, people can observe deep crevasses, hundreds of feet wide, opening across the ice and stretching far toward the horizon. During melting seasons, surface water forms blue rivers, flowing across the ice before dropping suddenly into vertical shafts deeper than 300 feet. In many areas, the ice thickness exceeds 10,000 feet, which is enough to completely bury large mountain ranges beneath the frozen mass. Recent radar surveys beneath the ice have also identified hundreds of subglacial lakes, revealing a complex water system hidden under the enormous ice sheet. What makes Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania one of the most intriguing mountains in Africa, when from a distance, a massive peak rises alone above the surrounding land? As people approach the mountain, the broad slopes stretch toward the horizon, and many wonder how such a large peak stands isolated within a vast landscape. Mount Kilimanjaro rises about 19,300 feet, which makes it the highest mountain on the African continent and one of the tallest freestanding mountains on Earth. Geological studies show that the rock layers on its slopes were formed by major volcanic eruptions around 750,000 years ago creating the enormous volcanic structure visible today. During the ascent, climbers pass through several different types of terrain, within only a few thousand feet of elevation, which makes the landscape change noticeably along the route. A scientific study published in 2009 reported that the ice area near the summit once covered about 4 square miles in 1912 before losing more than 85% of its extent over the following century. In Botswana, the Okavango Delta appears as a vast network of waterways spreading across a semi-arid region and forming an unusual wet landscape. Traveling by boat through winding channels reveals flooded grasslands, sandy islands, and wetlands arranged like an extended natural waterway system. The Okavango Delta is the largest inland delta on Earth, and during high water seasons, flooded areas can reach about 6,000 square miles. This watery plain formed when a major river entered low terrain, then split into thousands of smaller channels before slowly disappearing into the ground. Each year, roughly 2.5 trillion gallons of water flow into the region, spreading across wetlands, grasslands, and channels before evaporating or soaking underground. Ecological research shows these wetlands support hundreds of large animal species and water birds, creating a dense wildlife system within a dry landscape. What makes the Galapagos Islands in the Pacific Ocean, about 600 miles from the coast of Ecuador, look like a wild world separated from the rest of the planet? The islands formed when magma from deep inside the Earth pushed through the ocean crust, spreading lava that later cooled into rough, black volcanic rock fields. Along the coast lie long stretches of dark, hardened lava, where sharp basalt layers pile up like enormous geological walls rising from the ocean edge. Local people make a living through small-scale fishing and ecotourism, and simple wooden boats carry visitors across the water to explore this ancient natural landscape. When travelers arrive here, they must follow strict rules such as keeping distance from wildlife and avoiding bringing foreign seeds into the fragile ecosystem. Across the old lava ground, seabirds, giant tortoises, and marine iguanas live together in a rare ecosystem shaped by millions of years of isolated evolution. Madagascar is a giant island nation located in the Indian Ocean off the east coast of Africa, and it is larger than many countries in Europe. Madagascar covers about 230,000 square miles and is the fourth largest island on Earth, where red soil highlands, dense forests, and wild grasslands spread across a vast natural landscape. The island separated from Africa about 160 million years ago, which allowed plants and animals to evolve in different ways and create a nearly independent ecosystem. Local people live among the wild landscapes, building simple wooden houses, growing rice, and raising livestock across the long stretches of red highlands. Deep in the forests, giant trees with swollen trunks rise from the red earth, and dry grasslands standing like ancient water towers in a vast natural museum. Can you imagine a giant maze of rocky islands floating in the ocean that is Raja Ampat, located off the eastern coast of Indonesia? The name Raja Ampat in the local language means four kings, and it is connected to an old legend about the origin of this remote island region. These limestone islands were once ancient coral reefs lifted upward by powerful geological movements, forming vertical cliffs that rise from the sea like enormous stone skyscrapers. The waters around Raja Ampat contain about 75% of the world's hard coral species, forming a vast coral city spreading across the ocean floor. In water about 60 feet deep, visitors can clearly see coral reefs and large schools of fish moving together like clouds drifting through an underwater forest. Local people travel in small wooden boats and live from traditional fishing, moving between the rocky islands along natural sea paths that have existed for generations. In the middle of the ocean off the northeast coast of Australia, the Great Barrier Reef reveals a vast coral world where blue seas and ancient limestone create a wild landscape rarely seen on Earth. The Great Barrier Reef was recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site in 1981 because of its unique ecological and geological value. Beneath the clear water, massive coral structures rise like an ancient stone forest, while colorful schools of fish move in long streams through underwater limestone valleys. Human life along the nearby coast has been connected to this ecosystem for generations, from fishing in the open sea to guiding visitors across a coral world covering more than 130,000 square miles. You might wonder how the Great Barrier Reef could turn such a wide area of ocean into a giant limestone maze, and the answer lies in billions of coral polyps, smaller than grains of rice, that slowly stacked their skeletons over countless generations. The combination of enormous-scale wild, natural beauty, unusual colors, and rich marine life makes the Great Barrier Reef one of the most extraordinary natural landscapes on Earth. Komodo Island is a wild island located between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, and it belongs to Indonesia. The island covers about 100 square miles, and from far away, it looks like a giant grassland, rising from the sea, with round hills rolling like the backs of sleeping animals. The landscape was formed by ancient lava and volcanic ash, which created hard black rocky slopes and dry valleys that resemble the surface of a distant planet. This island is famous around the world because it is the only natural home of the Komodo dragon, which is the largest living lizard on Earth. Komodo dragons can grow almost 10 feet long, roughly the size of a small boat, and they move slowly across the dry hills like creatures from a prehistoric world. Local people have lived beside these giant reptiles for many generations, and they continue a simple life surrounded by a wild landscape that feels like an open-air natural museum. Borneo rainforest is one of the oldest and wildest tropical rainforests on Earth, stretching across the island of Borneo within the territories of Malaysia and Indonesia. This rainforest formed about 140 million years ago, leading many scientists to see it as a living record of the long evolution of tropical forests on Earth. Beneath the thick forest canopy, ancient trees rising higher than 300 feet stand like giant green columns, making travelers feel as if they are walking through a vast, natural city. Local communities have lived in this rainforest for many generations, often traveling mainly by boat along large rivers, because many parts of the forest are too dense to walk through. A deep layer of fallen leaves covers the ground and holds moisture and nutrients, creating a closed ecosystem where countless small creatures move and survive in the shadowy forest floor. From above, the entire Borneo rainforest looks like an endless green ocean where billions of treetops connect together to form a wild and quiet landscape rarely seen anywhere on the planet. Welcome to Svalbard of Norway in the Arctic Ocean, a remote land of rock and ice formed from ancient sediment where wild nature still remains almost untouched. Around 60% of Svalbard is covered by massive glaciers, with thick rivers of ice hundreds of feet deep, flowing slowly through valleys before reaching the cold ocean. Here, steep grey stone mountains rise between wide fields of ice and low tundra plains, creating a landscape that looks like a lonely frozen continent in the middle of the sea. Even in this harsh and isolated land, people continue living here through scientific research, polar exploration, and a simple life surrounded by vast wilderness. Svalbard is also famous for polar bears, with around 3,000 animals wandering across the sea ice that surrounds the remote Arctic islands. Deep inside the ancient mountains, people built a global seed vault that protects the future of world agriculture by safely storing plant seeds from many countries. Grand Canyon is one of the most famous natural wonders in the world, located in Arizona, United States. A massive canyon formed mainly by erosion that slowly shaped the land over millions of years. Grand Canyon stretches about 270 miles and reaches nearly 18 miles wide, creating a giant stone valley so vast that it looks like a mountain range hidden deep inside the earth. This enormous canyon formed as the Colorado River slowly cut through ancient rock layers for millions of years, carving deeper into the ground like a giant saw moving through stone. Some rock walls rise almost 6,000 feet high, about the height of more than 5 Empire State Buildings stacked together, making people on the rim look like tiny moving dots. Inside the canyon, many rocky areas remain extremely difficult to reach, where only rare explorer footprints appear and the sound of the river echoes far below. Grand Canyon is often described as one of the largest natural geology laboratories on Earth because the exposed rock layers clearly record the long history of the planet. Can you imagine a place on Earth that looks like a lonely planet? That place is Death Valley in the United States, a vast desert valley lying isolated among dry, rugged mountains. Death Valley stretches about 140 miles a distance, similar to a short domestic airplane flight, forming a massive valley of rock and salt that extends to the far horizon. This valley formed when the Earth crust slowly stretched for millions of years, causing the ground to sink like a giant basin surrounded by bare, rocky mountains. Some areas lie nearly 300 feet below sea level, about the height of a building more than 20 stories tall, making the entire valley feel like a huge desert bowl. Across this wide landscape of stone, sand, and white salt, human footprints appear only rarely, and the few people living nearby must adapt carefully to very limited water sources. The combination of extreme heat, enormous landforms, and surreal desert scenery makes Death Valley one of the wildest places on the planet. Located directly on the border between the United States and Canada, Niagara Falls is famous for the enormous volume of water that pours down continuously, creating one of the most powerful waterfalls in the world. Most of the waterfall forms a wide, curved shape, giving the impression of a gigantic wall of water folding down into the river below. The landscape here began forming about 12,000 years ago, when massive glaciers melted and left behind a large cliff where the powerful river started to plunge downward. Over thousands of years, the constant flow of water has slowly eroded the hard rock, causing the edge of the waterfall to retreat like a giant natural wall moving backward. People living in the surrounding area have grown used to the deep, roaring sound of falling water, a constant background noise that gives the region a wild and powerful atmosphere. Standing close to the edge of the waterfall, the thick mist can blur the view and make visitors feel as if a white ocean is pouring down from the land. Victoria Falls is one of the largest and most impressive waterfalls on Earth, located on the Zambezi River along the border between Zambia and Zimbabwe. It is not the tallest or the widest waterfall in the world, but it is considered the largest curtain of falling water on the planet because of its great width and the huge volume of water dropping at the same time. The powerful river has carved into ancient basalt rock for millions of years, turning what was once a flat riverbed into a deep, narrow gorge that looks like a giant crack in the earth. thick mist rises from the falling water like a massive white cloud, making the land around the waterfall feel constantly wet, as if a heavy rain has just passed. Victoria Falls sits in a vast natural landscape with very little urban development, which helps the surrounding region keep a strong sense of wilderness and isolation. Communities living near the river have long depended on fish and the flowing water to survive, surrounded by dark stone landscapes and the continuous thunder of the falling water. At Venezuela, Angel Falls appears like a giant ribbon of water falling straight from the sky into the rainforest, revealing a wild landscape almost completely separated from the modern world. With a total height of more than 3,200 feet, Angel Falls is the tallest waterfall on Earth, where water plunges nearly half a mile before touching the rock layers below. The landscape around Angel Falls formed on an ancient stone plateau where towering vertical cliffs rise like enormous natural walls surrounding deep rainforest valleys. The landscape around Angel Falls shows almost no sign of cities, with dense rainforest stretching for hundreds of miles in every direction across a vast and silent wilderness. Because of its extremely remote location for many centuries, Angel Falls remained almost unknown to the outside world, hidden deep inside the immense forests of Venezuela. Why is Angel Falls not only a gigantic natural spectacle, but also considered sacred by many indigenous communities? Because for generations, they have believed the waterfall is closely connected to the forest, the water, and the rhythm of human life. Iguazu Falls is one of the most powerful and overwhelming waterfall systems on Earth, located on the border between Argentina and Brazil, where enormous walls of water pour through a vast tropical forest landscape. The entire waterfall system stretches for nearly 2 miles, with almost 300 separate cascades falling at the same time, like hundreds of small rivers spilling over a giant cliff edge. The dark basalt cliffs where the water crashes down were formed from ancient lava more than 100 million years ago, when the continents slowly separated and left behind this massive volcanic rock platform. Water drops from a height of nearly 260 feet, roughly the height of a building with more than 20 floors, creating a huge white curtain of water across the rainforest horizon. Wooden walkways through the forest allow people to approach the cliff edge, where visitors quietly watch hundreds of waterfalls rolling downward like a white ocean, pouring through the jungle. Surrounded by dense rainforest and the endless sound of falling water, Iguazu Falls feels like an ancient fortress of nature where the wild landscape has remained almost unchanged for many generations. Mount Etna stands on the island of Sicily in Italy and is the largest active volcano in Europe. And it is also one of the most studied volcanoes in geological history. The volcano formed about 500,000 years ago when tectonic plates beneath the Mediterranean collided, pushing magma upward and slowly building the mountain layer by layer with hardened lava. On its slopes, vast fields of black lava stretch like a frozen sea of stone, where cracked ground and empty land create a landscape that looks like another planet. More than 200 vents and fissures spread across the mountain, forming a giant network of geological cracks that keep reshaping the land after repeated eruptions. Even while living beside an active volcano, many local people still grow crops on the mineral-rich volcanic soil, turning a dangerous land into a long-standing place to live. Mount Etna was recognized as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 2013 because it is considered one of the most important natural laboratories for studying volcanoes. Can you imagine a place where the ground keeps splitting open into massive cracks again and again? That place is Iceland. Volcanic zone in Iceland, a landscape shaped by fire and solid rock. In about 20 million years, magma rising from deep underground has built layer after layer of hardened lava, forming vast, black plateaus that look like endless stone deserts. Some lava flows once traveled more than 20 miles, leaving rough basalt fields, stretching toward the horizon and making the terrain look similar to the surface of another planet. When the lava cools, the rock breaks apart into millions of sharp blocks, creating a dark maze of stone, where walking across the land becomes extremely difficult. In this quiet and isolated landscape, people in Iceland build simple homes, carefully watch underground magma movement, and prepare to move away if the ground begins to shake. Today, the Iceland volcanic zone keeps changing as old lava fields, new green moss, and long tectonic cracks slowly reshape one of the wildest volcanic landscapes on Earth. Vatnajökull Glacier is the largest glacier in Europe by both volume and area, located in the southeast of Iceland. Here, ice, volcanic heat, and extreme geology exist in the same landscape, creating one of the most powerful and unusual natural environments on Earth. The glacier surface is torn by deep crevasses, while slow-moving ice flows down valleys like frozen rivers, forming a vast maze of ice, stretching far across the wilderness. In many places, the ice is almost 3,000 feet thick, about the height of 8 football fields, stacked vertically, pressing down on volcanic systems hidden deep below. When magma moves under the glacier, ice melts and massive floods of glacial water rush across the land, shaping the terrain and forcing Icelandic communities to live beside powerful natural forces. Inside the glacier, bright blue ice caves form every year, where visitors walk through glowing ice walls that look like the halls of a crystal palace. Silfrafjörður in Iceland opens like a deep blue crack in ancient rock, where calm water hides a long and lonely geological corridor between 2 continents. There is a reason many divers say swimming in Silfra feels like drifting between 2 parts of the planet, because this place marks the real boundary where the North American plate slowly pulls away from the Eurasian plate over centuries. The water in the fissure has visibility of nearly 300 feet, so clear that sunlight reaches deep to the bottom and reveals dark basalt walls, pale sand, and narrow rock gaps. This crystal-clear water spends about 40 years slowly filtering through thick layers of volcanic rock before it finally enters the fissure like a massive natural purification system. Can you imagine a place where the ground stretches white all the way to the horizon? That place is Salar de Uyuni in Bolivia, a massive salt plain in the lonely high plateau of South America. Salar de Uyuni covers about 4,000 square miles, almost the size of a small state in the United States, where the flat horizon makes distant vehicles look like tiny dots on a blank sheet of paper. Tens of thousands of years ago, this area was a huge ancient lake, and when the water slowly evaporated, it left thick layers of salt that turned the whole region into a vast white desert. The salt surface cracked into millions of natural hexagon shapes, connected together like a giant geometric map that stretches across the land until it meets the sky. The salt layer under the ground is about as thick as a 3-story building, strong enough for heavy trucks to drive across it as if moving on solid concrete. Some local communities still cut blocks of salt by hand and stack them into white piles across the silent landscape where people live in the middle of a giant ocean of salt. Lençóis Maranhenses National Park is one of the wildest natural landscapes on Earth, located in the state of Maranhão in northeastern Brazil, along the Atlantic coast. The park covers about 600 square miles, stretching like a giant white sheet, with soft sand dunes shaped like the folds of a massive bedspread. Some sand dunes rise nearly 130 feet high, forming long rolling waves of sand that look like frozen ocean swells across the land. Local people living around the park often walk miles across the sand to catch fish in the seasonal lagoons, shaping their daily life around this changing landscape. During the rainy season, water collects between rock layers under the sand, creating thousands of bright blue and turquoise lagoons scattered across the white dunes. Because of this rare combination, scientists consider the area one of the strangest ecosystems on the planet, where a desert-like landscape still supports aquatic life. Imagine standing on the shore of the Dead Sea between Jordan and Israel, where the deep blue water lies about 1,400 feet below sea level, creating the feeling of stepping down to the bottom of the planet. This massive salt lake formed over millions of years when ancient lakes slowly evaporated, leaving behind thick layers of salt covering rocks and dry ground. The water here contains about 34% salt, making it so dense that a human body naturally floats on the surface like resting on a heavy liquid cushion. Along the shoreline, bright white salt crystals build up into thick formations, shining like polished stone and creating a dry landscape where almost no visible life survives. The name Dead Sea comes from the extreme salinity of the water, which prevents most living organisms from surviving, making the environment even more wild and isolated. Local residents and travelers often cover their bodies with dark mineral mud before entering the water, standing among white salt shores and creating a very unusual scene. Where did Tsingy de Bemaraha National Park in Madagascar get a landscape that looks like a giant ocean of stone spikes, where the ground seems torn apart into countless sharp limestone blades rising upward? Across an area of about 600 square miles, razor-sharp limestone formations crowd together like millions of giant spears, turning the land into a vast and wild stone labyrinth. People living around the region say their ancestors once saw this stone forest as a natural fortress, where towering rock mazes protected them from the outside world. Some limestone towers rise as high as a building, more than 30 stories tall, standing close together like an enormous wall of natural rock that is almost impossible to cross. Millions of years ago, this region lay beneath an ancient ocean. Then the land slowly lifted and eroded, leaving behind deep cracks and knife-shaped stone ridges. The rock surface is so sharp that walking across it is extremely difficult, which is why many parts of the stone forest remain untouched and silent. Giant's Causeway in the United Kingdom is a basalt coast where the ground splits into tens of thousands of tightly fitted stone columns formed from ancient volcanic lava. About 60 million years ago, hot lava flowed across this land and slowly cooled, creating geometric cracks that divided the rock into nearly even standing columns. The entire area contains about 40,000 basalt columns packed closely together enough to cover a large stadium if the stone blocks were placed side by side. Many columns have 5, 6, or even 8 sides that lock together like natural stone bricks, forming a broken terrain created as the lava slowly hardens. For generations, local residents passed down stories about a giant path built by an ancient powerful being, reflecting how people tried to explain this strange landscape. In 1986, UNESCO recognized Giant's Causeway as a World Heritage Site because its rare basalt columns help scientists study the history of ancient volcanic activity. Zhangjiajie National Forest Park in central China is a protected forest landscape where mountains have broken into thousands of tall quartz sandstone pillars formed over millions of years. In 1992, the larger scenic region surrounding Zhangjiajie National Forest Park was recognized by UNESCO as a World Natural Heritage Site because of its rare pillar landforms. Many ethnic communities living around this forest grew up beside the stone pillars and dense woodland, where tourism and forest protection became part of everyday life. Deep ravines and narrow rock corridors cut through the terrain, so walking inside the forest often feels like entering a massive stone labyrinth shaped by long geological erosion. The bedrock here contains strong quartz minerals, so rainwater slowly widened natural fractures and gradually separated entire mountains into narrow, vertical stone columns. Across this forest stand more than 3,000 natural stone pillars, and many reach about 700 feet high, creating one of the densest pillar landscapes on Earth. Torres del Paine National Park in Chile is a wild landscape where massive granite towers and ancient glacier marks create a fractured terrain rarely seen across Patagonia. Why does this land contain deep valleys and giant granite walls that look torn apart by enormous forces? Science shows that ancient glaciers slowly moved and carved the land for millions of years. The park covers about 900 square miles in area, close to the size of Luxembourg, large enough to contain mountains, glacier valleys, and open, wild grasslands. Over millions of years, moving glaciers scraped away softer rock and exposed the harder granite core, leaving steep stone walls that appear split from the ground. In 2011, a careless tourist caused a wildfire that burned about 45,000 acres of vegetation, an area almost 3 times the size of Manhattan Island. In 1978, UNESCO recognized this place as a biosphere reserve because its dramatic landscape helps scientists understand the fragile ecosystems of Patagonia. Wulingyuan's scenic area in China is a sandstone landscape where thousands of tall, narrow rock pillars rise close together and create a rare vertical land structure. The region contains more than 3,000 sandstone pillars, many rising over 600 feet, formed from ancient sediment layers gradually separated by long geological erosion. Over tens of millions of years, rainwater slowly entered natural cracks in the sandstone and gradually split the massive mountain body into many separate stone pillars. One famous pillar here later inspired the floating mountain landscapes seen in the film Avatar, released in 2009. For generations, local communities have called these formations sky pillars because their tall vertical shapes appear to support the vast sky above. What process could divide a huge sandstone mountain into thousands of tall, narrow columns like this? Science shows that water erosion and repeated rock collapse shaped this complex pillar landscape across millions of years. Pamukkale in Turkey is a massive travertine slope created when mineral-rich water flows across limestone and slowly forms layers of bright white terraces over long geological time. The entire travertine formation stretches about 9,000 feet in length, roughly equal to 27 soccer fields placed end to end across a wide hillside. Over long geological periods, fresh mineral layers continue covering older surfaces, allowing the white stone terraces to slowly grow and reshape their structure. Mineral water carrying calcium carbonate flows across the rock surface and gradually solidifies, creating curved pools and step terraces that resemble natural agricultural terraces. Local communities have lived near these mineral springs for generations and consider the bright white terraces a familiar natural feature of their landscape. Have you ever imagined what it feels like to walk across shallow pools on bright white stone terraces, experiencing a geological structure that is still forming today? Mount Fuji in Japan is a stratovolcano where layers of ancient lava and ash built up over long periods, forming one of the most balanced volcanic cones on Earth. Why can an active volcano keep such a stable cone shape for thousands of years? Scientists explain that repeated lava flows slowly built strong layers that formed the mountain's lasting structure. Geologists believe Mount Fuji actually formed from three older volcano systems stacked together, creating a complex internal volcanic structure deep inside the mountain. For centuries, many pilgrims have climbed this mountain as a spiritual journey, treating the moment of reaching the summit as an important life milestone. The most recent major eruption happened in 1707, when volcanic ash spread across wide areas and permanently changed parts of the mountain's surface. The mountain rises about 12,400 feet high, roughly 2.5 times taller than the Eiffel Tower, built from many thick layers of hardened lava. Have you ever seen a lake whose water turns a strange, solid red? If not, you may not know Lake Natron in northern Tanzania, a highly alkaline soda lake on the East African Rift. When water pulls back, natron and trona settle into a hard salt crust and crack into polygon plates, so the ground looks sharply split. The lake stretches about 35 miles long and about 14 miles wide, yet its shallow depth makes the shoreline shift and reveal fresh salt bands. The pink-red color forms when salt-loving microbes produce pigments in concentrated water, and the patches can intensify or fade without warning. The Maasai people herd livestock around the basin and keep the Mountain of God story, so daily life persists on dry, salty ground. On July 4, 2001, the Lake Natron Basin became a Ramsar site, confirming its harsh ecosystem has global value. Socotra Island in Yemen is a limestone island and rocky plateau where umbrella-shaped trees stand sparse on dry ground. UNESCO records about 800 plant species, with about 300 endemic, meaning roughly 40% exist only here. Why so isolated? Dragon blood trees show umbrella crowns and dark red resin across bare stone, and locals once collected it as valuable trade. This archipelago stretches about 200 miles and includes 4 islands and 2 rock islets so long isolation fractured its layers. In 2015, strong storms knocked down thousands of century-old dragon blood trees, and forests lost slow-grown adults. Socotra is often treated as a natural evolution laboratory, where long separation created many species that exist nowhere else on Earth. In southern Chile, marble caves stand like an isolated stone village, surrounded by vast water, reachable only by small, fragile boats. The entire structure formed about 6,000 years ago, as water slowly carved rock hundreds of feet thick, creating hollow arches as tall as a 2-story building. Seasonal water level changes can completely reshape the entrance, forcing local boatmen to wait for hours before guiding visitors safely inside. Before tourism expanded in the early 21st century, residents survived by fishing and building wooden boats to navigate this hard rock landscape and deep water. Each year, only a few tens of thousands arrive, far fewer than Machu Picchu, keeping the site raw, quiet, and largely separated from mass travel. As waves continue carving marble over thousands of years, how long can this structure survive, growing human presence and environmental change? Banff National Park in the Rocky Mountains of Alberta, Canada, is a glacial carved landscape where mountains and valleys create sharply layered terrain. U-shaped valleys and thick sediment deposits preserve long glacial movement, showing how massive ice once ground and pushed entire rock masses. The park covers about 2,500 square miles, large enough for ecosystems to function like a self-contained natural territory. Established in 1885 after disputes over hot spring, it became the foundation of Canada National Park System. The bright blue color of its glacial lakes comes from fine rock flour suspended in water, giving the surface a mineral tone. Wildlife crossings and underpasses built by Parks Canada help maintain migration corridors across this vast mountain wilderness. A coastal scene where pure white sand stretches for about 4 miles along the open ocean. That is the experience waiting at Whitehaven Beach in Australia. What makes the sand surface shine so brightly? Scientists explain it contains about 98% nearly pure silica, creating extremely fine and rare white sand. Each tidal cycle can move thousands of tons of sand, constantly reshaping the shoreline and altering the coastal structure over time. The silica sand is so fine it has been used to polish metal and test materials at detail that often surprises visitors. Before becoming internationally famous, the beach was mainly used by local fishing communities for coastal living and daily activities. Whitehaven Beach has repeatedly been ranked among the most beautiful beaches in the world by international travel magazines, changing its global reputation. Drakensberg Mountains stretch between South Africa and Lesotho as a basalt plateau edge where the continent ends in continuous steep rock walls. Geologists state that the basalt layers formed about 180 million years ago, when ancient lava covered the plateau and later erosion cut a clear escarpment. The range extends more than 600 miles, nearly the distance from Paris to Rome, creating a rare geological wall across the southern hemisphere. Thousands of sand rock paintings still survive in this area, recording ancient hunting life and proving humans adapted early to this rugged terrain. Many cliff sections rise above 3,300 feet, more than 3 times the height of the Empire State Building, showing extreme vertical scale. Have you ever wondered how an ancient lava mass kept such a continuous stone wall through millions of years of erosion, and what hidden layers remain inside? Aoraki Mount Cook in New Zealand rises about 12,200 feet, formed by colliding tectonic plates and carved sharply by glaciers. Massive glaciers carved deep, U-shaped valleys and smoothed the mountain base over millions of years, exposing clear geological cross-sections. In 1991, a major rock collapse reduced the summit height by several feet, proving even the highest peak is still changing. In 1998, New Zealand officially recognized the dual name Aoraki Mount Cook, affirming indigenous cultural meaning alongside national geographic importance. Compressed metamorphic and sedimentary rocks formed steep slopes and a sharp summit, giving the mountain a raw and untouched appearance. If tectonic plates continue shifting only millimeters each year, how many hidden rock layers inside Aoraki remain waiting to surface? Kawah Ijen in East Java, Indonesia, is a volcanic crater holding an acidic lake about 0.2 square miles wide and nearly 650 feet deep, formed by magma pressure beneath the Earth crust. The steep enclosed crater surrounds deep blue water, creating a vast basin where rock walls are eroded and stained yellow by sulfur minerals. The lake can drop below 1 on the pH scale, showing extremely strong acidity capable of slowly altering exposed rock surfaces. Cracks in the rocky ground release sulfur gas that ignites into rare blue flames, revealing unusual chemical reactions in nature. Sulfur mining has continued for decades, with workers carrying loads between 130 and 200 pounds across steep, uneven terrain. If magma and trapped gases keep moving below the surface, how much further could the structure of Kawa Ijen transform in coming years? Mount Fuego in Guatemala is a stratovolcano about 12,500 feet tall, built from layers of lava and ash that formed a steep cone over thousands of years. In 2018, a major eruption killed more than 200 people, showing how volcanic flows can reshape land within only a few hours. Layers of ash and hardened lava stack like geological records, turning the mountain slopes into a visible history of repeated magma activity. The question arises where this enormous energy begins and how it continues for thousands of years. Scientific evidence shows that oceanic crust sinks about 30 miles beneath continental crust, melting rock and feeding a pressurized magma chamber. Despite the danger, local communities still farm on mineral-rich volcanic soil, choosing to live beside an active geological system. During active phases, the volcano can explode several times a day, releasing ash and hot rock that prove the structure is constantly being rebuilt. Cenotes of Yucatan in Mexico are natural sinkholes formed in limestone where cave roofs collapsed and exposed hidden underground water systems. A cenote is a natural open well, a deep round water-filled hole created when dissolved limestone gives way and reveals underground rivers. Some underwater cave systems extend more than 180 miles, similar to the distance between Paris and London, showing the vast scale below ground. The ancient Maya depended on these water-filled sinkholes as their main freshwater source and left ritual objects at the bottom of several sites. Vertical rock walls, tree roots cutting through hard limestone, and clear water create a raw landscape shaped slowly by time and flowing water. Among these silent round pools and long dark stone corridors, you may wonder how many hidden passages still remain unexplored by humans. Bora Bora Lagoon in French Polynesia covers about 12 square miles and formed from an ancient volcano that slowly sank, leaving a coral ring enclosing the water. After World War II, the area shifted from a military supply base into a luxury tourism center where local communities depend on the sea and reef protection. This structure matches the Darwin Atoll model, where a volcano gradually subsides while coral continues growing to form a natural circular barrier. The surrounding coral reef works as a natural wall that stabilizes the inner water and supports a marine ecosystem with hundreds of tropical fish species. The lagoon is so clear, you can see the sandy bottom several feet below, and its size equals more than 4,000 soccer fields combined. If the coral ring declines due to environmental change, this natural protective system would lose stability and alter the ecosystem that has existed for thousands of years. Lake Retba in Senegal is a salt lake covering about 1 square mile, where the water can turn pink due to salt-loving microorganisms. The salinity can reach nearly 40% close to the Dead Sea, allowing the human body to float naturally without effort. Hundreds of local workers harvest salt by hand each day and protect their skin with shea butter while earning their living from the lake. The pink color appears when microorganisms adapted to extreme salinity produce pigment, transforming the lake into an unusual natural space. Among pink water and tall white salt piles, you may wonder how many hidden chemical changes are quietly happening beneath the surface.